What is PSN? Is PSN the social arm of the Presbyterian Church here in New Zealand? What exactly is White Ribbon Day? Welcome to Church Chats. My name is Timothy Rose and I'm the minister at St. John's Preparatory. Today we have Ann Overton with us to answer all of these questions. Welcome, Ann. It's wonderful to have you with us today, and it's quite a privilege. And I would just like to begin asking you, what is your role at PSN?
Right. I'm the community relations manager, so that means there's two strands to that. So one is walking alongside Presbyterian churches in the northern region and also in Kaimai and with Te Akapoho and the Pacific Presbytery to help them engage in their communities in different ways. So to understand around social justice issues and what's happening on the ground and
wow,
be
that's
able
a lot to unpack.
Yeah, so that's just one strand. And then the other strand is the community-led development.
Okay.
So taking an idea from, it might be someone from a parish, it might be someone in the community and saying, oh, I'd love to do this. It's like the example of that is the Heartstrings project in Taniatua around a community garden. Had an idea, went and spoke with Honey and Tamiana Thraup and Chris Bernard, who was the minister in Whakatane. And from there, this amazing community garden, which is so much more, Church Without Walls, all over the last 5 years, that's developed. So it's being there, taking a seed of an idea and helping it grow through facilitation, unblocking roadblocks. So they're the strands of work. They both interweave into each other.
Okay, so your role has two strands then, basically.
Yeah.
And so you're represented. Now, I use the term PSN. Probably a lot of people don't even know what that is. What in the world is PSN?
So Presbyterian Support Northern, it used to be called Presbyterian Support Services, but Presbyterian Support Northern, because we are one of 7 Presbyterian regions. So there are 7 different Presbyterian organizations throughout New Zealand, and they come together as a federation.
So it's got the term Presbyterian in it. Mm-hmm. So is it associated with the National Church?
Yes, it is, but it's completely different. So we came out, the Presbyterian Support Northern came out of the Presbyterian Church. Duncan McPherson was the missioner who came up with the idea. And so while we operate very separately, we have lots of threads and points of commonality that we work together on. Okay. But we would have the ethos of being Presbyterian, and but we're not there to preach the gospel. That's your role, but we are there to love and care, offer manaakitanga to everyone who crosses our paths, whether they come in our doors or we meet them on the street or wherever it may be. Mm-hmm. We take our role very seriously, around integrity, with our values, that we're trusted, and we offer hope. So, but there's a lot of, you don't need to be a Christian to be part of Presbyterian Support Northern, but you need to embrace the fact that we're a faith-based organization.
So I've heard it described as the social arm of the church.
Yes, but we are, I suppose that you can call it that, but the church doesn't have a lot of influence over what we do.
Okay.
But we do come together in many, many ways, through social justice and through services and working with the churches.
Oh, okay. That's quite interesting when you hear it explained like that. And of course, I'm thinking of people in our church who they might have seen PSN. We actually have some signs up inside the church, but they really don't know what it is. And it's interesting to hear about the history of that and how that it basically was a church initiative. And that explains why there's such a close connection. One of those ways it's connected is White Ribbon Day. Yes. What is that exactly?
Right. So White Ribbon Day, it's a national day on the 25th of November, and it's also a worldwide initiative. But countries might choose to have it on a different day. So it started as a way for men to be able to stand up and say no to family violence against women. Okay. And New Zealand has really, really sad statistics around family violence and what happens. But it's sort of broadened now because family violence happens for older people. It happens, that there are some women who are violent towards men, also in other, particularly some gay relationships, and there's a whole lot of violence. So it's now become broader, but it is making a stand to say violence is not okay in the household. So
it's well received to support that White Ribbon Day in our area. What could St. John's Preparatory do to support White Ribbon Day?
Right. Okay. Well, we've sent you some resources, and as for you, get people to sign up for the webinar. There's a webinar on the 25th of November, and it's 45 minutes, and it will give people a lot of information and some tools of how they can support someone who is going through family violence. It's not for us to solve, it's for us to support and walk alongside someone, because people have their own answers and they have their own pace that they need to go to. We need to be well resourced. Everyone should know where to go to be able to help someone, and also recognize the signs and not be afraid to have some conversations. It would be great in your church to sit around and talk about some of these issues, because there'll be people in your church congregation who this is happening to them. And there's shame, there's a whole raft of things, but actually it's such an important to be able to walk alongside and love someone and help them through this.
Yeah, I like that when you said it's not our place to solve, but it is our place to support. I like that. That's really good. PSN then is very involved, boots on the ground, right there in the streets, doing the nitty gritty. What's been the biggest struggle for PSN through COVID-related lockdowns?
Right. Okay. There's several things. So I manage our food bank in Grafton, which, as you imagine, the demand was overwhelming. And for me, it was hearing the pain and the shame in people's voices, having to phone and ask for a food parcel when food's a basic commodity. The community, like Preparatory, should have been able to feed itself. No one from Preparatory should have had to ask for a food parcel. There should have been Pātaka Kai, the ways that the community could feed the community. And there's so much potential and opportunity to do that. For Shine, which is one of our organizations around, being able to help people around family violence. Family violence escalates the stress, the anxiety, people losing jobs, all those things exacerbate the anger and violence towards mainly women and children. But children become very traumatized by it. It's a huge, huge issue that children see things and they hear things and it's not dealt with, and they carry that trauma on with them. Lifeline, which is another strand of Presbyterian Support Northern. So people phoning because they're lost, they're struggling. So so one of the things was mainly social isolation. People felt so disconnected, so they started to be stressed out, and that was leading them to make decisions which they shouldn't be. But for people to know that there's support there for them. And then I think our social workers in schools, so not being able to see the children so easily and meet with them and talk with them to know, are they okay? It's all very well children being with their families during this time, but that's not always the best place for children to be all the time. What's happening with food? What's happening with those families around with jobs and other pressures that's happening in housing. So that's been really hard. So there's going to be, I think there's going to be a big fallout when we get back. I think there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done to help bring families back together, to help them to find their way back on track, so to speak.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a big struggle for families and for you all, because you're so invested. Now, you mentioned a couple of organizations, which it kind of brings to my mind the fact that PSN works in conjunction with, was it 5 or 6 different organizations? So you mentioned Shine, you mentioned LifeWise. I know there's Enliven.
Yeah, so there's Lifeline. So Lifeline's a 24/7 helpline. So for people who are struggling with, they need someone to talk to, it's a counselling line, or perhaps they're thinking of having thoughts about suicide and things. So, but it's a line that they can help people with any social issues, and they will direct them if they need to other areas, or it might be you might phone if there's a family violence incident, and they will put you in touch. Okay. So Shine is Safer Homes in New Zealand Every Day. So we have advocates, community advocates, and they work with the police. So in Auckland, we are the first Shine's the first organisation that the police contact if there's been an incident. And so we go in and work with the family. We have refuges as well. So safe houses for they're for women and families to go to. So there's a lot of work that we do.
That's amazing. That's amazing how much work is done. Well, a local church like ours, a local parish, St. John's Preparatory, how could we, or should we, or how can we partner with PSN in our community? Not that we're trying to be selfish, but it's just this is where, you know, the Lord's called us to minister. So how can we leverage the partnership with PSN to be more effective in the community?
Okay. Well, I think we need to sit down and talk. We need to talk about what people are passionate about. What do they already do? Who are they engaged with in the organization, you know, outside of the church? And then for us to work out, oh, okay, you've got a real heart for older people. So what could we do in the community? What's already happening? Who could we join in with? But, you know, is there something around, you know, dementia that's starting to happen? How could we start to be that known as that, as a church, as a community for you to be able to really support and love people and their caregivers who have dementia? So there's different ways that but we've got to sit down around the table and start to have those conversations, because people will already be connected. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to find how do we work together and to facilitate, you know, their action.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Of course, after COVID lockdown, but yeah. So, you know, you're describing things, and you know, just for full disclosure for people watching this video, Ann and I worked together previously to this role that I'm in now, and part of my role was the mission neighbor for the Presbyterian. And so we actually had the partnership where she represented PSN, I've represented Northern Presbyterian. And one of the things we worked on together was the St. Giles Mission Initiative. Now, when I left, it was still just more of a prayer and planning, but I have heard a lot has happened since. So could you talk to us about what is the St. Giles Mission Initiative?
Right. Well, it's very exciting. It's a new way for both Northern Presbytery and Presbyterian Support Northern to work together. We have a partnership, and so it's going to be for those in your congregation who know about the Te Whare Te Pawha model of Dr. Mason Jury. So it's the 4 rooms of the whare. So you're looking at the spiritual, you know, so a community minister, Whamanu, has been engaged by Northern Presbytery. So he'll be looking after the spiritual side, and PSN will be looking after the social side. So everything weaves in together. So you'll be looking at, you know, whānau and all family. You'll be looking at the emotional side, the physical side. So together we're creating a community hub at 1207 Dominion Road. Where St. Giles, you know, has just finished up the congregation, and we're looking at doing it all around Kai, and bringing people from the local community, inviting them in. We'll set up community gardens with them. There'll be a pātaka, there'll be a food forest, and finding out what it is in a food store. There'll be a type of food bank. We're moving our food bank from Grafton, previously at St David's, because that's been sold, but it will be through engagement and relationship, and finding out what the community really want. How do we best support them?
Wow.
How do we support them in food security? How do we support them and connect them with other organizations? And what do they want to learn? Do they want to learn about cooking and preserving, or gardening, or developing social enterprise opportunities? What is it that they'd like to know? So we're really excited that this is a true partnership. You asked me the question in the beginning that Presbyterian Support Northern came out of the Presbyterian Church. Well, here's this wonderful, intentional way of both of us working together in partnership. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that is. How long were you at St. David's, Khyber Pass?
21 years.
My goodness. So this is a major shift.
It is, yeah. And it's a shift from being a traditional transactional food bank,
Yes.
whereas an agency sends through a food bank, a food parcel request, or someone walks in and you give them a food parcel.
Okay.
That's what happens.
Oh,
So instead, it's going to be more a wraparound. So people might, if they're wanting food, then Whamanu, the minister, might be talking with them. We might have it set up that that people will come in once a week, and we sit down and there's food provided, and they could perhaps buy food from our food store at very low prices, but then they can choose the food that they want. So it will be about choice. There'll always be fresh produce available for them free. So it's a very different way than our transactional model we're currently doing.
I love that. You're empowering them, and you're protecting their integrity. And
very much so.
Yeah, and you're preserving the dignity and respect. That's amazing. Well, we could talk a long time. I can tell that. And people that don't know, the two of us can talk a long time together. But I do need to kind of bring this to a close. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think has been the most challenging aspect of your role in PSN?
I think it's working with churches and trying to get people to overcome their fear of doing something different, their fear of failure, the fear of making mistakes. But as we know, through making mistakes, and I've made quite a few, I have to confess, you learn so many different skills, and you have a reflective process and go, oh, I could do that differently, or you develop relationships, and out of that a different way comes through. So it's that fear of going into the unknown.
Yeah, permission to fail forward is not always given. And I can see that being a challenge. So what's been the biggest blessing?
Oh, the people, developing relationships with amazing people from all different sorts of walks of life, ethnicities. I love working cross-culturally, and I love seeing people grow and develop and towards their full potential. It's very exciting.
Excellent. Well, we're coming to the end of the year, and hopefully to the end of the alert level system for COVID lockdowns. What's your vision for 2022?
My vision for 2022 is that every church would have a pātaka kai.
Oh, okay.
Outside their front door, accessible to all, and it would be filled, really well stocked with delicious, healthy produce that anyone could come and take, and people could contribute. If you've got the lemon tree, you're putting your lemons in, but you might need the wheat bix. So it's that lovely reciprocity. So that surrounds food security. I'd love to see that there are community gardens, that people are learning, that there's space for people to grow food, and that they learn skills. There's been some skills lost. Intergenerational. Lots of older people really know how to garden, but lots of young people, the food comes from the supermarket. So I think there's some wonderful learning there. And I think working in with schools, I think that's really, really key. And particularly where you have social workers. So you're making sure that you're able to support families in different ways.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. And it's been wonderful talking to you. And I really thank you for taking the time out to just chat with us. And it's been a
Okay.
real pleasure to have you. And so
Yeah.
the Lord bless you. And we will be watching, and we'll sit down for a cup of coffee in the new year.
I look forward to it. There's Devon. Sorry, Tim.